Taking place in the current times, the main antagonist of the game takes inspiration from a real-life convicted killer known as Henry Howard Holmes, or given the sinister title of the America's first serial killer, mainly active between 1880 to 1890s. The pop culture, however, transformed his story into a nightmare where he built a hotel full of traps and secret rooms where he would lure unknowing visitors in to kill. Hi folks, I'm R, your narrator, and welcome to The Devil in Me. If you have any video suggestions or theories, make sure to send them to me on my Twitter or subreddit. Keep in mind that this video will have spoilers, and with that said, let's begin. Starting in 1893, the game opens on Marie, a new wed, speaking to his partner Jeff about a recently opened Ferris wheel and how they'd like to go on a fair later this day to start the first day of their honeymoon. They soon arrive at World's Fair Hotel with a mysterious man named Henry Howard Holmes welcoming them at the reception after a long wait. Mr. Holmes explains he owns the hotel, who offers to take their luggage to the room, which seems as if he's the only one working there.
I'll take your luggage up to your room and ensure that everything is in order. Just make a note if you decide to purchase anything, and we will add it to your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. We appreciate it.
The pleasure is all mine.
As they arrive at their room, the two, surprised at the size of the suite, displayed their excitement, especially as they paid standard rates for a room in this caliber. Celebrating their honeymoon and the first win of getting such a room, Jeff and Marie have themselves a pillow fight, not being aware that they're being observed through a secret peephole having the view of the entire room. Marie instructs Jeff to shave while he takes a bath before continuing their intense pillow fight, with Jeff remembering he forgot his shaving kit, having no other choice than to go to the reception to look for what they have. As he tries to open the main door to the lobby, the door handle activates a trapdoor, which leads to a booby trap with spikes below, which have their tips stained in red, indicating many victims have fallen for this trap before. Meanwhile, Marie getting into the bathtub, she hears someone walk into the room when she sees Holmes covered in an apron, holding a straight blade approaching her, who slashes her a few times, gravely injuring her, with Jeff getting back to the room a few seconds later. Holmes opens the door, informing Jeff that Marie had an accident when Jeff realizes something is wrong, seeing the straight blade in Holmes' hand. As he tries to run, a sliding door blocks the corridor, with Jeff running into another room which is rigged with a gas pipe. This portrays how Holmes intricately designed and built the hotel to have a maze filled with traps in order to kill his victims in efficiently. As Jeff is specifically directed into this room, while struggling to breathe with the gas seemingly being poisonous, Henry Holmes opens a wall panel which has a thick glass, which opens directly to the honeymoon suite, where an injured Marie watches her husband struggling to survive while Jeff does the same, with both of them dying soon after. It's soon revealed that this is just an introduction to Henry Howard Holmes, the notorious serial killer who designed the murder hotel where he would trap his guests and kill them in different ways, creating some sort of twisted and real escape room. Or at least this is how the story has been portrayed in pop culture. The timeline quickly shifts to the current times, with different characters being introduced through an interview recording, with a mysterious someone watching it. These characters are called Kate, an investigative journalist, Mark, the cameraman, Jamie, the lighting technician, Aaron, the new recruit sound engineer, and Charlie, the director, who seem to have been involved in making or trying to make some sort of documentary. The time shifts back to the past, with Henry Holmes being held in court, where the judge sentences him to death in 1896, while Holmes makes sinister and eerie remarks that it's not him who committed the murders, but some sort of supernatural entity, the devil, that guided his body, with death not being enough to stop him from his reign of terror. As requested, he was buried under concrete in order to stop his evil from re-emerging, while the investigators traced more than 200 murders to him, with him only confessing to 27. Timeline going back to the current times, the crew known as Lonnie Entertainment is seen trying to make some sort of documentary about the murders of Henry Holmes, known as America's first serial killer, when they receive a call from someone called Grantham Dumit. Dumit directly talks to Charlie, proposing them a deal that they can't refuse, making them go to a mysterious location the same day, with a car being sent for them, an unlikely mode of transportation for a film crew, a limousine, as if they are going to be the stars of a show this time around. Only on the way in the car, Charlie explains to the crew that they're going to a full-on recreation of the murder castle, the name given to the World's Fair hotel which Henry Holmes ran, with Dumet inviting the crew specifically as one of his relatives was obsessed with Henry Holmes. Charlie accepted this proposition as Dumet seems to have artifacts, blueprints, and documents related to Henry Holmes, which seemed like an ideal situation as it would save their show, which is about Henry Holmes. Kate, on the other hand, the woman in front of the camera, shows doubt and reluctance, but either way goes with the plan, with all the crew being required to turn over their phones as the owner restricts any unauthorized footage to be shared or taken. After some time, the car reaches a heavily monitored and gated area nearby Lake Michigan, with the date being October 26th. Charlie and Mark then decide to go atop a nearby lighthouse to get a better vantage point and film some B-rolls for their show or documentary. On their way, they find some notes which reveal that the compound and the lighthouse hasn't been supervised since 2000, making it an abandoned place. After getting some B-rolls on the lighthouse, a carrier boat or a ferry soon arrives, with Dumet himself being there. After some time sailing, they get to a heavily protected island which apparently hosts a replica of the murder castle. As Dumet is extremely restrictive, scrutinizing the crew and dictating their every move, Charlie asks Kate and Jamie to stage an injury and sneak around the island to see what Dumet is really hiding.
Ow! Oh my, damn it!
What happened?
You okay?
Hit your baby ego again?
Jamie, stay with her.
Why me?
Because you know first aid. Remember how you patched her up? In Glendale?
Oh, right.
After some trekking and climbs, they find several staff members in yellow raincoats transporting things which they don't see, not thinking much of it before rejoining the group. After some motivational and touchy encouragement from Kate, Mark manages to pass a bridge over a cliff, indicating that they had some sort of history together before.
Thank you. You always knew how to get me through the shit, didn't you?
We should catch up to Mr. Dumet.
The crew finally reaches the hotel replica, signing their names and going to their designated room, seeing a strange sign in their way reading 178, as if being a count for something. Maybe, just maybe, a kill count. As after all, this is a horror game with a serial killer on the loose. As Erin desperately tries to navigate and find her room, she sees a little girl in the halls before she disappears, when Jamie appears and asks her to go to her room, to just stick together as she's getting the creeps. After Jamie and Erin get a little too close and intimate, they get interrupted by Charlie fiddling with their door, mentioning that he's lost as well. As Aaron and Charlie both leave to find their rooms, Jamie looks out of her window, noticing Dumet and the little girl Aaron saw earlier running in a panic to the carrier boat, taking off as quick as they can as if running away from something. The scene changing to Charlie and Aaron, Charlie has a breakdown about his cigarettes being missing, sweeping the hotel to find them or just buy new ones. Magically finding the keys to the bar at the lobby, Charlie goes there, finding an animatronic barman directing him to a cigarette packets dispenser. Despite this being very lucky, the dispenser acts up, turning off and on, when Aaron informs him that it's dinner time and they need to go. The scene then changes to Kate and Mark, revealing that it was Mark who broke up with her, despite the crew thinking it was the other way around, with Jamie specifically seemingly having some bad blood with Kate, always being rude and attitudey with her.
Hit your baby ego again?
Mark soon finds a book written about Henry Holmes and his murders, with the author being called Joseph Morello, an actual guest that stayed in the hotel just a few days before the crew arrived, according to the hotel register book. As if the people running this replica hotel target people specifically who are interested in the story of Henry Holmes. As everyone gathers at the dinner table, Jamie breaks the news that Dumet left on the ferry alongside another young girl, which concerns everyone to why the host would leave his guests on their own device with no sign of dinner anywhere at the dinner table. Despite the weirdness of the situation, the crew finds a silver lining, as now they have the place entirely to their own, filming exactly what they want with no scrutiny of each and every step they make. As the group spreads out to prepare the place for rolling, Aaron enters a room which closes the door behind on its own, trapping Aaron with an animatronic of Holmes dropping. The perspective changing to Jamie as she tries to work with the electrics and turn on one of the key lights. The fuse jumps, forcing her to find where the fuse box is. Exploring the place to find the fuse box, she finds notes indicating that this hotel used to be a hotel spa which was converted in 2017 to become a tourist attraction, the murder castle replica that it is now. Strangely, however, instead of becoming open to public as a tourist attraction, its doors were shut, with it becoming heavily run down, becoming a heavily guarded place and a private property. Jamie soon comes across an invitation letter to Joseph Murillo, the author of the book about H.H. Holmes, detailing how Murillo was also lured into this place exactly like the crew, with a limousine picking them up, inviting 4 more family members or friends, hosting up to 5 guests at a time. After some time, Jamie finally manages to find the breakers and reconnect the power, joining with Charlie. As they set the scene for the first shot, they hear Erin's screams, rushing to her, trying to get the locked door open. As Erin is struggling to breathe due to her asthma, not having her inhaler with her, a sliding heavy door opens with a tall figure dressed like Henry Holmes approaching her, offering her inhaler. This mysterious figure cuts a sample from Erin's hair before going back behind the sliding door and closing it, leaving the scene when the crew manages to open the main door with the secret sliding door closing. The crew trying to come up with a plan, Charlie decides to find Dumet and clear things up, taking Jamie with him, while Kate has enough and wants to leave, with Mark accompanying her, both planning to pack up, but for some strange reason, all leaving Erin alone in a room, someone who just narrowly escaped being a victim. The perspective changing to Charlie's and Jamie's, Charlie unveils how he never planned looking for Dumet and he just wanted to scout for shots. Jamie and Charlie soon come across a booby trap, finding a restrained person on a chair with his face being covered with a sack, which Charlie mistakenly activates by stepping on a contraption. He tries to stay on so the restrained person wouldn't die, but the figure resembling Henry Holmes appears, scaring Charlie, which forces him step off, leading to this person's death. The scene changing to Mark and Kate this time, he tries to reconcile with her and get back with her when they find the newspaper article about a university campus strangler, someone who killed a friend of Kate, Shelby, which she blames herself for her death, as she was supposed to accompany her the night that she was murdered but instead slept through, now having some sort of drowning guilt that she can't fully move on from. Realizing someone has specifically targeted them and lured them into this place, one of the large sliding walls starts closing. On the other side, Charlie and Jamie telling Kate to get out before they die. Jamie and Charlie then get locked in a freezer where they find human corpses, realizing what a big trouble that they're in. And just when they thought it wouldn't get any worse, a trapdoor under Charlie opens, dropping him into a basement level. Moving on to Erin, her door suddenly shuts and locks securely, with a secret sliding wall opening, guiding her to go there. After some exploration, she reaches a recreation of a hospital room with Jamie's phone being locked in a display box, revealing one of Jamie's texts with a friend of hers saying how she's not into Erin as she's timid, also talking about her in a disrespectful manner. It's not clear if she actually sent this text or if the people running this twisted real escape room are trying to play with the victim's minds. Erin soon finds a note written in 1972 by a school principal addressed to Mrs. Monday, informing her that her son, Hector, has been lashing out at school and having bruises all over his legs, thinking that these bruises are the result of playing rough at school with his peers. This could potentially mean that Hector could be the killer copying Henry Holmes, but much more on this later. Erin suddenly hears Jamie's voice instructing her to hide in a cupboard when the figure resembling Holmes appears, not noticing her. Perspectives yet again change to Mark and Kate when they arrive at the dinner table, seeing mannequins of the entire crew reenacting their discussion before, with a tape recorder even playing their discussion, depicting that every move of theirs has been recorded and observed. Jamie soon appears and reunites with them, filling them in on what happened to her and Charlie so far. The scene changes to Charlie waking up in the basement floor, which seems to be an elaborately designed dungeon. Charlie finds images and tapes about 2 victims, seemingly being the first victims of the killer, who is seemingly the one copying Henry Holmes. Charlie continues on, entering a new place where a packet of cigarettes is lying on the floor perfectly, clearly being a bait for Charlie to bite on, which of course he does as he's desperate for some sort of smoke. As soon as he picks up the packet, the door behind him shuts, trapping him in the room. The rest of the crew somehow get their attention directed to a monitor which is delivering live feed to the room Charlie is trapped in, seemingly being a twisted game where the crew gets to say on what happens to Charlie, or simply a way to warm them up for what they have coming their way, trying to break them down mentally. The room is then revealed to be rigged with gas pipes when a mannequin holding a lighter emerges out of the ground, lighting up the room. The room starting to become like an oven, Charlie uses all of his powers and lifts one of the heavy grates on the ground, taking shelter from the heat, with the crew thinking that he died. Back to Erin, she navigates her way back to her room where she encounters the killer. The killer scares her away into a contraption room where the door gets locked, trapping her inside. The crew hears Erin's screams, going to her rescue, where Kate runs ahead, trapping herself in a room adjacent to her, with Mark and Jamie being able to see both of them through windows. The rooms are designed in such a way to suck all the air out, meaning Erin and Kate would suffocate if Mark and Jamie don't hurry up. They are given a choice to shift the valve, bringing back the airflow, but the catch is they can only do one room at a time, with the killer playing a twisted game with them, choosing only one. Luckily for them, Kate's window seems to have a leak, not being securely sealed, which they pop out of its frame, rescuing both Kate and Erin. The group then decides and plans to stick together rather than separating, making the best decision they possibly could, as they realize the killer wants to separate them, but for some weird reason I don't understand. When they hear a sound, Kate and Erin decide to run towards it without consulting with the group, leaving them behind, which of course makes this group get separated again. Mark falls through a trapdoor, but lucky for him, the vent duct breaks, with him ending up in what seems to be a storage room. Soon Mark comes across an FBI ID card under the name of Hector Monday, the person who seemed to have some sort of trouble in school in his youth. A confidential document reads on how Hector went through severe stress after his mother's death, seeking psychological therapy to cope and feel better. It is possible that the mysterious killer who has intricately designed this replica is Hector Monday. With the perspective changing to Jamie, she comes across a hidden mock interrogation room where the killer has created a reenactment scene of a serial killer being interrogated by Agent Hector Monday, who gets wound up and ends up hitting the suspect. It appears as if Agent Monday was the investigator who was involved in investigating many linked murders, interrogating serial killers. Erin and Kate, on the other hand, go through the open corridors, coming across a book by Joseph Morello with a portrait of him this time, displaying that he was the original guy who pretended to be Dumet, the guy that lured the crew in this murder house, escaping on a ferry alongside a young girl. Moving on, it's displayed that Charlie in fact survived the furnace fire, hiding under the grates. Charlie comes across an animatronic in a yellow raincoat who mimics the sounds the person restrained on a chair made who Dumet seemingly executed, revealing that it was a fake, with the masked killer just scaring the crew. Jamie then finds Kate and Erin, reuniting with them, finding the core of the place where the killer observes his victims and operates his sick and twisted death games. The group subsequently plans to look for Mark and maybe trap the killer before leaving the compound, not knowing Charlie is still alive, with Jamie taking the lead to go through the place alone while Erin and Kate stay in the control room, observing her and opening the right paths for her. That's when their plan goes absolutely wrong, with the killer scaring the group away from the control center, with Kate and Jamie ending up in another death game where Jamie has the choice in letting herself die or Kate die. Jamie, despite not seeing eye to eye with Kate, doesn't want to press the reverse button for Kate to die, but as the compressing window gets too close for comfort, she gets scared pressing the button. But lucky for Kate, as she was given a screwdriver earlier, she uses it against the window wall, which makes it shatter, with both Kate and Jamie surviving. Escaping this room, Erin joins the duo when Dumet sets chase after them, with an intense face-off leading to Kate dropping Dumet to his presumable death from the roof. Dumet seems to have some sort of facial deformity as he wears a facial mask or prosthetic, dressing up as Henry Holmes, with the group just leaving his body instead of double tapping, which we have learned times after times from media that is the absolute worst mistake. Of course, that's not the end of the killer, as he easily gets back up, seemingly just had been slightly injured or had a slight temporary concussion, being even more angry now. The group manages to escape the persistent killer by being lucky when a platform breaks, separating them from him. On the other side of the story, soon Charlie stumbles upon Mark, who's surprised to see him as the crew thought he died in the furnace. Mark fills in Charlie on what their plan is, that they want to go to the lighthouse and signal for help as the killer has disabled the ferry. Soon, coming across medical records of Hector as a 7-year-old child, the doctor reports on how he observed how Hector had shown signs of physical injury and bruising seemingly being domestic, portraying that his mother had caused these injuries, especially as she hasn't been coping mentally. Therefore, Hector Monday has been a child abused by his mother who grew up to become an FBI agent, interrogating murderers and investigating homicide, but seemingly living a double life, in private being a serial killer himself, as if projected from his childhood trauma sustained from his mother. Some documents suggest that Hector Monday was suspected to be a serial killer labeled as the shoeshine killer who was involved in a fire, which might indicate he actually does have facial scarring or burns, hence why he wears a facial mask or prosthetic. Meanwhile, Erin gets separated from Kate and Jamie, finding Mark and Charlie instead. Soon they come across a letter sent by Hector Monday's mother dated 1965, saying how she gave birth just a few weeks ago, a letter which is addressed to someone called Clarence, Hector's biological father who abandoned them after impregnating his mother. This letter shows the poor mental state of Hector's mother and how she's pleading with the father to come to her. But of course, he had left 6 months prior, never to be seen again, as he wasn't ready for a child, which leads to the mother developing mental health conditions, venting all of her frustration on a young Hector. Of course, Hector, experiencing and suffering so much trauma, he develops a taste for the sinister actions himself, becoming a serial killer. After reading the notes, the group manages to go up to the lighthouse tower, turning it on, sending a help signal so maybe they could get rescued. Coming across a mummified and preserved corpse who has been turned into an animatronic, a book is found on its lap titled The Boy Who Loved Scary Stories. The story is slightly altered, with the name of the aunt being crossed out to mother, displaying how it's about Hector and his mother, and how she was very strict and how he didn't like her, being an allegory to the trauma and abuse that he suffered from. This displays how this preserved corpse is no other than Hector's mother, who lived up to an old age before Hector seemingly killing her at her home, who has a pre-recorded tape playing showing how she was very condescending and insulting to Hector. This might have started Hector's obsession with recording everything and replaying them, creating clones of his victims or other people, as if preserving the moments and his encounters. Soon, the entire group reunites, running away from the killer, also known as Dumet or presumably Hector, who developed a psychotic persona of a serial killer after the trauma that he went through. Soon, the sheriff of the local police comes to the island with his boat, but his presence is short-lived as he gets killed by Dumet, who appears from the darkness like Batman with no one even seeing him. Unfortunately, Joseph Morello with the young girl corpses are both seen nearby, depicting how Dumet manipulated them to lure more people into the island as if being promised their safety, but nonetheless, they both died. The raincoat-wearing staff seen earlier in the game were of course no one else but Dumet as well, who pretended to be the staff members while moving through the compound and preparing his death games. The crew manages to get on a functional boat, which makes the entire point of going to the lighthouse redundant, which led to another person's death, but instead, they do a very wholesome thing, rescuing a dog from the island called Connie. Little would they know, however, is that Dumet is hanging onto the boat as a stowaway, still trying to kill the group. The group one by one jump into the water, with only Kate and Mark staying behind, who battle the killer to death. Thinking that Dumet is killed and the crew managing to escape, they find their way to a road where they wave at a truck who takes them to safety. As a good ending, Mark and Kate reconcile, while Jamie and Erin have one of the unlikeliest relationships with really weird dialogue, and Charlie on the other hand has one of the wholesome conclusions, finally getting a chance to get his hands on a so desperately needed smoke, but deciding to quit as this experience made him value his life.
Probably not the right time to ask this, but...
Oh God, what?
Are we are we a thing?
Dude, trauma bonding is legit hot. Yes, we're a thing. Trauma bonding is legit hot.
At the very end, an end scene is shown with a sinister Dumet, or otherwise known by his real name as Hector Monday, who impersonated many serial killers, picking up his mask, portraying how he actually didn't die, going back to his parade of terror, sending more invitations to unknowing victims who somehow still fall for his tricks despite the story of Lonnet Entertainment crew being reported on national TV, presumably with the place they were tormented in being reported as well. And that's it for the end of this video, folks. If you enjoyed it, make sure to stay tuned for more by hitting on the subscribe button and the notification bell. It's been your host Star, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.